thankful that Jerry has, out of a little bit of prodding, is taking a long weekend off, enjoying his beautiful 7/8 and her son up in New York. So put him on a train early this morning. But we're going to talk a little bit today about rentals. We've been talking a lot about for sale properties, and I've got, once you see the cameras go live, I'm going to be a little bit outnumbered on the set here, but I'm surrounded by some rather attractive young ladies around the left and right of me. So I'm going to be a little bit intimidated here, guys, but I can stomach my way through it. So whenever you're ready, Judah, we'll hit go live. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Real Talk, your guide to real estate, life, and the pursuit of happiness. Today is going to be a little bit of a unique show. I am sitting in this center seat for the first time in 2.5 years, 160, let me get my math right, 168 shows. My dear friend, love him to death. I put him on a train this morning. He is spending the weekend with his better 7/8 up in New York. Actually, off to my left, I have a fellow New Yorker from which you'll see her here in a second, in Brooklyn. They're vacationing in Brooklyn. For a guy who grew up in Brooklyn in the 60s and 70s, that was kind of strange for me, but he's in Brooklyn vacationing with his lovely wife. So today, I've got some rock stars with me. I've got, to my right will be Nikki Chambliss, to my left, Deandra McDonald, and to my left, Suzanne Reel. And we're going to talk rentals today, right? We've been talking for sales for 2.5 years. I felt this would be a great show to bring in some experts to talk about that. But before we do that, I want to give a shout out to the folks that we could not be doing this for 2.5 years for a bunch of companies and folks. And it's Interstate Service Company, your house's best friend, American Pest, Charlottesville Settlement Company, Pearl Certification, Scott Morris with Ross Mortgage, and Dairy Market. So I found out most of the folks actually listen to this. So those who are watching live, they're scrolling along the bottom. The folks that are listening to this, such as Jerry, probably on the train, and I'm probably going to get texts, hey, Smith, do this. Hey, Smith, do that. Do yourself a favor. Get on YouTube. Get on TikTok. Get on Facebook. Watch the show and support these folks, because without that, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing. So I just wanted to take a few minutes and say thank you. So how we usually kick this off, ladies, is we usually kick this off by doing a flip book of your life. So if you don't mind, I think Jerry usually says go to the studio cam so we can see these lovely ladies and myself. I'm going to start with my right. You're my wingman this time. Wing person, I should say, excuse me. You're my ring person today. You're the one that's going to be watching the feed for questions.
That's my job today.
That's your job.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Nikki.
All right. I'm Nikki Chambliss. I am team leader at Keller Williams Alliance, and I kind of like helping people in real estate. And by kind of, I mean like a whole lot. I also did show choir for a while, and I've decided that is why I am so expressive. So I think I figured it out.
You figured out why you're so expressive.
Jazz
Oh,
hands.
please do tell.
Well, show choir.
Show choir.
Yes.
So what
that
is show
the
choir
answer.
for those who do not know?
Who is living under that rock?
That would be me.
Oh no, Keith! You're killing me, Keith.
I'm from Brooklyn. Give me a break.
You sing, you dance, you put on a show, you wear sparkly things. At least that's what we did in high school. No, did you just say part of the church?
Choir. Well,
no, it was high school, and for some people it was college. They made some movies about it. It's not the same in the movie as it was in real life. The movies are way more entertaining.
See, shows you how much I know.
Oh my gosh, I got to send you links for movies and all the things.
And you and Keller Williams Alliance is also a sponsor. I've missed out in the intro.
Oh,
I apologize, Quentin Beckham, who's probably going to yell at me. So tell us, you've got a new position over there. Tell us a little bit about that.
I do. So I'm working there as team leader. So I get to, instead of being an agent there and in doing all things sales, now I get to help my agents be successful and run the best businesses they can and use systems so they can go take a vacation every now and then, because, it seems like the only way to do this is to like kill yourself while you're killing it, and it's just not. There are options.
I'm going to go over to my left now.
Let's do it.
Suzanne.
And I appreciate the segue, because if you go into the office on a Saturday afternoon and no one else is there, you get a show choir presentation.
Oh, tell.
It is, well, just a
She actually
quiet.
you're singing in the office.
I
Well,
can't
she
help
didn't think
myself.
anybody else was there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
She did a great.
Oh, no, stop. You've got to talk about that.
No, it was wonderful, though. Wonderful presentation for sure. So
tell
going
us about
from
yourself.
music to music, I was a church musician probably my entire life, and my mother was, and I was a full-time church musician, and decided that I wanted to change careers and do something very different. The beautiful part of it is it was service and it is still service. And that's the part I love about property management, in the fact that we're still serving people. And I enjoy meeting a lot of people and helping, just like
So it
Nikki.
wasn't a pivot, really, right?
In many
you just
ways.
moved service to a different level. So tell us about Ally. What do you guys do? What how many homes are you currently have in your portfolio? And
So
all
it's
that
a
fun stuff?
full-service management company, and we provide assistance for tenants finding homes. And obviously, the first contact is the owners who have rental units that there are investment properties, and we help tenants link to the right property.
So a little later, we're going to talk about how you can actually help people and get connected to. You're helping my wife and I, and which was a direct result of these two young ladies. So Deandra, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and I'm going to tell that story when you're done.
Absolutely. So my name is Deandra McDonald. I am a real estate investor here in Charlottesville. I own properties all around Central Virginia. I started as a teacher. Well, I started as like a lab tech, worked my way into teaching, and then started buying rental properties to help supplement that super high teaching income that you guys have heard so much about. And now I do real estate full time, so I manage my own properties, which maybe I can pass on because I'm over it.
Well, that's kind of why I've got you guys sitting together.
Totally welcome.
Right.
Would love that.
We're always the source of the source, so there you go.
Right. I manage my own properties, but I also teach real estate. So that's kind of my where I was a teacher of biology. Now I teach real estate, and so on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook, one-on-one coaching. That's where my primary source of income comes from now.
I really want to take a deeper dive into that a little bit later, because what we all do, even though we're in the service business and we're in the general real estate, in essence we teach folks. It's a teaching process where we help people guide them through. So a teacher's really a guide.
Yeah.
My youngest daughter is a teacher. She's out in Seattle. Our youngest daughter, I should say, and I believe she's up and watching because I see her on the feed at the moment. So, honey, she had a conversation with me the other day. She goes, Daddy, maybe I should get my real estate. Maybe I should do that. So I'm gonna have to make sure that she watches this and learns from you.
Absolutely.
And watch some of your TikTok stuff, which is super cool. So. We regularly talk about ownership here, right? So I kind of want to just open this up to rental property, and I'm probably going to start with you, Suzanne. So we hear this on the feed all the time. There's nothing to find. Rentals are in such are hard to find. They're pricey. I don't really know where to take this conversation from here, but we get a ton of these conversations on that stuff. And I just kind of wanted to throw it to you to see, if folks are frustrated, what advice would you give them? What counsel would you give them? Does that make sense?
It does. I think that every time I do a search, even through our own properties and that are available, I think it's just patience, just waiting for the right time for the right property to become available.
So we do that on the sales side. So it's really not that we don't. My wife and I do not do rentals. We're about ready to get back into rentals, which we will talk about that here in a minute. But so where we talk about this all the time on the show. Where do we see trends going for rentals and so forth and so on? So anybody wants to jump into that, Where are we seeing the rental market going?
So I can say
Yeah.
right off the bat that I feel that we are able to ask higher prices right now, because I'm seeing a lot of folks, tenants who are being, their leases are not being renewed because their owners have decided to jump into the sales market, so they're losing their homes, and there's I sense that there's more concern out of finding a home for, let's say, a 3-bedroom house for a family because owners are selling.
So you're
where
seeing
they've
a
been
lot
renting.
of that then?
Yes.
So that's even making the rental market worse, right, Deandra?
Yeah, when I talk to my clients in particular, single-family homes are not the way we go for rentals, because single-family homes are expensive to upkeep, and we also don't want to overcharge people either. So I imagine a lot of my clients are also dropping a lot of their single-family homes just because it's not worth it to keep as a rental when I can get so much more money if I sell it, especially in this market, or if I rent it out to different people. So to renters, sometimes it's like, let's talk about you buying, because it might not be as far out of your reach as you think. But I'm seeing a lot of people start to shift to a little further away from like the core, especially in Charlottesville, going a little further out, which has its own issues, right? Because you have to have reliable transportation, you have to be able to have reliable schooling or quality schooling. But that's where I'm seeing at least my renters start to like look outside of the core of Charlottesville, but also start to see like how much does a house actually cost? If we can get you some grants, if we can get some help from systems, like can we get the price more manageable?
I'm glad you brought up grants, because Suzanne and I had a conversation before, and you're doing some awesome work in grants that help folks pay their rent, correct?
Correct.
Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yes, and we're working on our 3rd grant application right now. We've been able to help folks to the tune of over $10,000 in back rent, and certainly the owners are really happy about that. But I can't say enough positive things about Virginia Housing Grants. They've been great to work with,
Yep.
and it just is a couple of months' work with all the paperwork to make sure you get everything turned in. But Virginia Housing has been fabulous, and it's been a great fit for a lot of
Also,
our
Virginia
tenants.
Housing also provides grants for home buyers.
Yep.
So that's they cover it all.
So what I'm hearing is there's help, right?
There is.
Those who watch the show know I'm part of the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission. We've just received some substantial grants, several $1 million to help rent, to help folks stay in. But I remember the conversation in our pre-production meeting was you have roughly 50 properties,
50,
right?
yes.
And what is, in the rental world, it's a vacancy rate, right? Vacancy rate is a big calculator they have to put in. What is your vacancy rate currently looking like?
Just 2 right now
Got
out
it.
of 50.
Yeah, okay, so you have you'll have 3 here in a minute once we sign up.
Definitely, but I got someone for you already.
Look at this, I got somebody. Hey. So Deandra, I'm going to pitch it back to you. You do this awesome TikTok teaching thing. And I
Yeah.
use the word thing because I'm trying to figure out how to describe it, and I think you would do a much better job than I would ever do. But what I understand is Keith and Yona Smith want to buy their first investment property, or they want to get into owning a home. You actually help them through that process.
Yeah.
Talk about that, please.
So I'm not a realtor, but I am
But I
a
play one
teacher.
on TV.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But even it's a lot of the videos I make aren't about being a realtor. It's about kind of showing what the landlord-tenant relationship is, what our responsibilities as landlords are, especially showing the private landlord life. I think we get a lot of interactions with more corporate management, and not everyone with great corporate management. Those are the kind of stories that come up more often than not, and kind of showing like this is what private ownership could look like. Here's an example of it, and here's an example of what your money goes to, because that's also a frustration of people, right? Of feeling like I'm paying all this money, they're just taking it all and profiting off of it, and just like becoming fat cats, right? Dragons, like hoarding all this money, and just trying to show at least what I do to make sure that my tenants are comfortable and that their housing is as super high quality as possible. You talk about vacancy, like I don't have vacancy, I rarely have vacancies, and that's because I try to be as active as I possibly can, because it keeps me paid, but also keeps my tenants happy too. And you brought up Virginia Housing, we talked about helping tenants with grants, but also even like with COVID relief. So when I leave here, I'm heading down to one of my buildings to work with two of my tenants who need relief, who need some help. And instead of going through the eviction process, we're going to fill out the paperwork. And I know it's coming, so I have time to wait the 2 months for it to come and pay the back rent. But Virginia Housing also helps tenants currently, but also outside of COVID times, there were grants as well to apply for it.
Well, once the commission gets their grant program up and running, I'll reach out to both
Yeah.
of you ladies, because it's really a great source for folks to go ahead and get some assistance in paying it. So, I'm trying to architect the conversation a little bit here and move it kind of forward. There's a thing in the news, right, that you guys you're a landlord, you represent landlords. We look like we have some more mortgage rent relief coming in from the state, but there's moratorium on eviction. Are you seeing any of that, or are you guys handling it in-house? I hear you're handling it in-house. Is that quite kind of what you guys
Yes,
are
we
doing?
are also handling it in-house.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so explain that a little bit, how that works.
So,
So I'm a landlord, I'm a tenant, I can't pay my rent. What is the tenant's next best step? Does that make sense?
it does. And so as the property manager, I go and visit with them, and we fill out all the grant applications. I sign for them. They sign over third-party release so that I can take care of the application for the grant. And then we submit.
So I think the answer is, you raise your hand, you call Deandra and say, I need some help.
Yeah.
And Deandra knocks on your door and sits down and says, what can I do to help?
Yeah, so we have a conversation because these things are available, and a lot of them, they have shifted, because when COVID first happened, landlords were not able to apply like directly for grants, or there felt to be a barrier there, like it was tenant initiated. But now landlords can apply without the tenants need to be there the entire time. But yeah, give me a call so I already have this paperwork ready to go. Let's fill it out. Fill out what you need to fill out. So I also don't have your information because I can't secure it. And then we submit it. And if you weren't going to qualify, because I've had one person who didn't qualify because she wasn't under the stress that they deemed necessary. It's like, okay, let's talk about a payment plan. Like, what can we do so we're not super far behind? Like, what are the options available to us if you and I talk? But if we don't do that, right, if we just kind of put our heads in the sand, then that's when the eviction processes have to start. If you go 3 or 4 months and you're not picking up your phone, if you're not answering the door, if you're not responding to mail, then at that point we would have to move to eviction.
It's the same thing in the ownership perspective, right?
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
If you can't make your payment for whatever reason, the first thing you need to do is reach out to your servicer, or your real estate agent who helped you through the transaction, or your loan officer who helped you through the transaction, and say, look, I think I might need some help. What's available out there? The forbearance is still going on. That's a great opportunity for folks to get in and help that.
Well, before we move on,
Yeah,
I do
sure.
want to just say hello to some people who are watching.
Yeah, sure,
Can we
please
do that
do
real
that.
quick?
Yeah,
So we've
please.
got Johnny Ornella says, good morning, guys.
Hey.
We've got Yona there giving us all a shout out. Thank you for being here, which is amazing.
I'm
like
watching
that.
it.
Nicholas
Look at the camera, stupid,
Murphy,
'cause that's literally what
Bill McChesney. We got Joyce Washington from KWA
Oh,
popping
cool.
in. So Kelsey
And
Waters.
Any questions on the feed?
No questions yet. I will definitely
That's
let
not a
you know when
problem.
I
We can
have
go ahead
that.
and do that.
Oh, Neil, of course. Neil is
Williams,
here.
yeah.
We love Neil.
Neil, God love him. He sent me an email this morning and said, I'm around the corner. If you need me to help, I'll come in and be
Great.
I need help, Neil.
Oh, so we just got a question.
Cool.
Kevin Higgins says, as property owners and managers, what has this pandemic taught you that prepares you in the event this happens again?
So, 2.5 years, 186 shows. This is what I love about what I do, what we do here. I could not have thought of that question. Thank you. So, Deandra, you want to tackle that?
Yeah, for myself and my clients, reserves are key. When we are to be a quality landlord, you've got to have reserves. Like, we're not blowing all the money on the house, we're not blowing all the money on potentially unnecessary upgrades. You have to have reserves in the bank, because the reason I feel comfortable waiting 2 or 3 months to get paid is that there's money in the bank already,
Yeah.
right? I'm not stretched super thin. I can make payments. If no one paid me at all for the month of August, I can still cover all of my mortgages, which makes it easier and less stressful for me to do my job.
Sure.
So even moving forward, like making sure you have a substantial chest, the bigger your portfolio goes for issues like this.
So what do you keep, about 3 months?
Yes, 3 months, and that's zero people pay. So,
Wow, that's awesome.
That just makes it, and let me also say, it took time to build that up for all the properties. It wasn't like the day I bought, I had 3 months saved away. But as I buy now, that's part of my formula, is to make sure I have that money ready to go.
Brilliant.
What do you see,
Brilliant.
Suzanne?
So this is just on humane level, is just the acts of kindness that are necessary
Yeah.
to support our tenants when they're really going through tough times.
And that's important to get out here, folks, right? You know, everybody kind of thinks the big bad landlord. You're not. Don't look like a big bad. You look like a
Very sweet.
awesome person, very sweet with excellent little fingernails. I'm sorry that.
Can I also add
Sure.
that I think something else landlords will do and continue to do is keep their eye on rent help programs even when COVID is over. So I was already like with Section 8 and other housing help before COVID, but I wasn't as involved with Virginia housing as I've been, but I will continue to look for those to have them ready. So if a tenant in 2 years calls me and COVID relief is done, maybe there's something else that we can start right away instead of having to search then and bringing up that stress later on.
So, Nikki, any other questions on the feed that you saw over there?
No questions yet, but I do feel like one thing I want to say that I feel is not just within this room is sometimes I think people are a little bit afraid to get into investing. It seems like a lot, but what I'm hearing everybody say is there's solutions.
Yeah.
There are solutions. There is help out there. It's worth it. I know it has been for me.
There's rarely one issue that will bring a whole thing down, right? So which means that there's always a solution to something. Like if we have to fix a fridge, if you don't have the money right now, can we get you a Home Depot credit card that you have a year to pay off? Like there's always, because there's rarely one thing. And if it was, it probably was big enough that you shouldn't have bought in the first place, right? If the roof was caving in and it had people, then maybe you should have just not bought that property. But there's rarely one thing which takes away, at least for me, that fear that one mistake or one choice can bring my whole portfolio crashing down.
So maybe you should have hired a trusted advisor. So that's part of what we're trying to do here, right? We have trusted advisors, we have real estate, we have an awesome teacher and also educator here, and we have a real estate property manager. But I've been trying to work to this one issue, and anybody who's ever watched the show, know we're from New York. We're open books. You know, I'm an open book. I'm going to share. You know, personally, Yona and I went through the Great Real Estate Depression.
Yeah.
I don't call it a recession. It was a depression. You know, just by the grace of God and a lot of hard work, we kept everything together. We kept our family together. But we went from very well to below zero. And I was on vacation, listened to your 2 interviews with Jerry and Quentin Beckham, and made the decision to get back into rental. And we're going to be buying our first rental property since investment property since 2007.
Wow.
And I'm doing a little bit Intrepid, but you 2 ladies motivated and inspired me to do that. But not only that, you know what we're doing? Guess how we're funding this? You go ahead and let me know.
Not seller financing.
There you go. There you go. So we are seller financing it. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about that because for others, I've done it quite a bit over the decades. For myself, this is the first time I've ever done it for myself. I've helped clients do it. I've helped commercial deals do it. I help other folks doing it. So I want to tackle that a little bit on seller financing because it's not that complicated. It's actually pretty good. But Deandra, you did a really good job with Quentin explaining the right circumstances. And it's all about figuring out what the seller's world is. And that's, in our case, it fell in. So you want to tackle that a little bit?
Absolutely. So for those of you watching who don't know what seller financing is, seller financing or owner financing as it's sometimes called, is when instead of the bank lending you the money in order to get the property, the seller, who often owns the property outright, will act as your bank. So you will still have to put down a down payment potentially, right? That's negotiable, but they will carry the lien against the property. They will carry the note for you, which means you don't have all the fees that comes with the bank. You don't necessarily have all the qualifications that come with the bank, and you pay them. So you can pay interest-only payments if that's what you want. You can also do a amortized note over time with the balloon due at the end, or if it's long enough, just pay it regularly till eventually ends out. But the reason owner financing is so great is because, number one, it's definitely going to be cheaper for you in terms of fees. So that's always great. But two, again, you're keeping money, I guess, with individuals, which I think is really powerful. Like, I am not paying Bank of America, General Bank. I am not paying General Banks.
Then that's fine.
That's right.
We're good.
To necessarily get bigger, I'm keeping the money in-house. And this has happened with people who maybe got inherited properties that they don't necessarily want to move back into, but they don't want to sell what their grandparents or their parents have worked so hard for. Lose the asset completely. It's, hey, let's make some money off of it in the meantime. It helps people keep their taxes down. It helps keep renters in properties. And so that's why I'm a super big fan of seller financing.
So let's talk about our specific case.
Okay.
I can't talk about who, what, when, and
Absolutely.
where. But where this came in was we helped a client buy a home up in Northern Virginia. Unfortunately, he lost his wife, so he was a widower. Which one is male? Widower, thank you. A widower on that. And he said, hey, we want to sell a house. And he said, but I'm going to get slammed with capital gains.
Yeah.
And he goes, I don't need the money. And you literally outlined this exact scenario. And I'm talking to this guy on vacation, and I went, oh, this is what we can do. And literally, that's what happened. And so I had a conversation with them. I said, you need to double check with your CPA. Please double check with your tax professionals and your legal professionals on this stuff. We just play real estate agents on TV here. But so what happened was I said, look, we'll give you a little bit down payment. We'll do a 7-year balloon on it based on a 30-year amortization on that end of it. He got a little bit of money. We're going to get a beautiful townhome in a nice neighborhood.
That's awesome.
What we're going to do is, with this wonderful help from Suzanne, we're going to try to keep the number a little bit lower than the normal market, so we can help some folks, because I think the math is working out. We're fortunate. We got a little bit of reserves that we can throw into it on that end of it. But it worked, and it was like, well, hold it. Now, here's a couple of pivots, guys. 2 things. Make sure you talk to a CPA.
Yep.
Your tax professional, make sure how it's going to impact you. And the second thing is hire a really good lawyer, because you're creating your own loan documents on that stuff. So did I follow the good path there?
You absolutely did.
Look at that.
And can I say, the beauty is both sides win. Like,
Yeah.
I've never seen a seller financing or owner financing deal where it was only one side benefited. Like, both sides won here. He got to defer his taxes and maybe find somewhere else to put it. Right? So it gives him some space as well, the seller, right? Gives him some space to find another building or property or wherever he wants to put the money, instead of frantically
in his
selling.
case,
And
he just needed a little bit of money for living money.
yeah,
Just
you got to be
worked out.
proactive instead of reactive, and that's a beautiful
We've got
thing.
a great comment addition to this
Sure.
conversation. Daniel says that he did owner financing with their first purchase, and at a younger age, due to them at the time paying cash for everything, but they had no credit. So they had the cash, they just didn't have that credit built up. They couldn't do traditional financing. I run into people who are like, oh, we're solid, but our credit's crap. It's not something we ever paid attention to.
And it really was a win-win. It's a win-win.
And he said it worked out so well.
You're spot on. There was an emotional connection here. He knew, because we had a relationship established already. He knew we would take care of his home that him and his wife lived in, and so it just worked out. It worked out really great. Matter of fact, it was like, okay, who else do I got?
That's right. Who else is selling?
Let me see. We sold your house. So how's your wife feeling? What did you even say? That's a horrible thing to say on that end of it. So it's important for this conversation for folks to understand: A, there's help out there. B, we're not, everybody that's in this space are not these big bad folks. We're here to help people. You really generally want to help somebody. And if you can put a little bit of shekels in your pocket to take care of your family and put kids in college and all that kind of great stuff.
That's a big one.
That's just how this works. Anything else on the feed?
Not at the moment, but I feel like it's going to come in. But I love how you mentioned having something to help pay for your kids' college, because what a lot of people end up doing is delaying or deferring retirement by years to be able to pay for increasing college costs.
Well, I just want to personally, in front of whoever's the whole world here that's watching, thank you, because we would not be doing that. It's part of our retirement plan.
Yes.
It's amazing.
2008, we went from having one to not having one.
Yep.
Right, and then we've been slowly rebuilding this, and it's the plan. I will tell you, I'm sweating now, not because of the interview, because I'm nervous, right? It's this is a big step for us to go and do, but we know that we have trusted advisors that are going to help us through the process. Suzanne, what Ally Property Management does is literally, I said, look, this is what we're buying. What can I do with it? And you matter of fact, you were over in the property within minutes, looking at it and saying, this is what we can do. This is what you need to do. So let's talk a little bit about the process, right? Somebody that wants to get into this. We figured out seller financing is an opportunity, right? Everybody's going to pay attention to Deandra's TikToks and learn how to do this, right? But what's my next step with you? What do I do to have you help me?
Sure. So when an owner gives us a call and says, I have a property, one of the first things I do is check out the property online, but very quickly, or as quickly as possible, go walk through the property, see the area, give them an estimate of what I think the rent could be. Also evaluate, just as you said, the rent could be here if these are the appliances, or we could base it here if we put new appliances in because of the location. Certainly walkability is huge, especially for grad students who we love to rent to, and med students. So.
Speaking of which, do you do student housing?
Not undergraduate.
Not undergraduate. You do graduate.
Yes. Very happy with grad students.
Yeah, so why are you smiling so much?
Well,
let's talk a little bit about why you don't want to do undergraduates.
And not because of any personal experience, just I've heard the stories.
Oh.
And my predecessor, Linda Maxwell, who actually handed us many of her properties, did not rent to undergrads, and I just felt that was a wise choice. And,
I know one of the reasons that I was taught not to be wary of undergrads, it's just that there's a big turnover with undergrads. They don't always stay in the same place, especially if they're coming already as third or fourth year, or juniors or seniors, sorry, if they're already coming as upperclassmen.
Well, I think we're in Charlottesville, so it has to be first year, second year.
That's right, third and fourth years. The turnover can just be really high. Just because every year they're moving out because they're graduating, and that's awesome, but that makes life a little more difficult on our end, where grad students, if they have longer programs, or even if they have a 2-year program, the odds of them sticking in one place, or me getting to offer a 2-year lease because I want you to stay in one place, is so much simpler, and it allows me to keep the rent costs down because I don't have to deal with that every year.
I'm going to ask you a question, Deandra. So there's a lot of conversation. I sit on President Ryan's affordable housing team, and there's talk about moving second years on campus.
Yeah.
How do you think that's going to impact the market?
And
Suzanne, you can tackle that one.
So I imagine it'll impact older owners less because they owe less on their properties. I think people who have maybe bought in the last 5 or 6 years, if they bought pretty high, that can make life maybe a little more difficult for those landlords because their mortgages are so high. I saw a duplex on the market, like less than a mile, Cherry Avenue, so right behind the hospital. 7 years ago, that duplex probably would have gone for like $180,
yeah.
And I saw it on the market for like $450, which was just like, ah! But if someone bought there thinking they could get those super high undergrad prices, and then the undergrads are no longer there, I can imagine that person might be under a little more stress because those super high renters.
So why is undergrad rental so high?
It's high because of, part of it, I think, is because of turnover. Like knowing that you have to turn over the unit, knowing that it might not be in the best shape when you get it back to turnover. And security deposits only go so far because of normal wear and tear. Undergrads typically want to also live in larger groups. I don't know a lot of people who are looking for individual housing. So if you have a house of like 8 people, that can be difficult.
But isn't undergrads normally charged, because we just went through this with our youngest daughter, by the room, right?
Because they have bigger houses.
So the upperclassmen, right, the masters and doctors, they rent the whole house. There's a very different scenario where you would have, because I remember we would just sign individual leases for that room, right, not the house and all that stuff. And that's why the math's a little bit higher,
Yeah.
right? So if I have a home with 4 bedrooms and we're getting, $500 a room, then that's $2,000 versus a $1,500 a month 3-bedroom, or if you could even find that in Charlottesville. Right?
Don't think so.
I literally just realized what I said once I said it. Well, forget, I just did the numbers this morning. There's no such an animal as that. So let's pivot to that. What the heck's out there that people can rent, Suzanne? What's the rate? What if I have a client, or you have a client that wants to rent a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home? Where are they going?
Well, it's expensive, there's no doubt. We find that 3 bedrooms are running anywhere, depending, of course, if it's outside of Charlottesville. It's really all about location. You could actually find something for $1,350 or so, but other than that, you're paying in the city $24, $25, $26.
Can I say, I promise, every time I come here, I learn that I'm underpriced. Every time I walk here, I'm like, my 3 bedrooms aren't getting $2,400. Maybe
And where
I
are they
need
at?
to- They're in Belmont. So maybe I need to call my management.
I can tell you, Deandra, I ran some what's active in Charlottesville in Carr, right? So you use Zillow, you have other tools. All the tools I have available is Carr and all that stuff. The median in Charlottesville, this is detached only, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, roughly 1,300 square feet. Would you want to take a gamble on what that's active at?
18?
2,000.
Man.
2,000. The minimum is 1,000, which is 1 bedroom. This is active. This is what's currently on the market in Carr, right? This isn't what yours in your pool. Minimum is 1 bedroom, 1 bath, 600 square feet for $1,100.
And
So
this-
good for you. You're doing the right thing.
I don't know if it is. This goes back to the buying well helps you at the very beginning too, right? That my properties are priced low and I make great profits already and I don't feel the need, which is also I guess why my tenants aren't leaving. But I don't necessarily
Also
feel the
good.
need to raise the price, but it started with the way we purchased, right? The people who purchased that duplex I talked at 185, if they purchased it all those years ago, no matter how the market fluctuates, barring a full-on collapse, we'll do pretty well. Because even to drop it $500 or $600, if your mortgage is only 8 or 9, you're still doing pretty well considering. But if you're buying at the top of the market or you're not following all those fail safes that are put into place, you can be in a rough spot or having to charge $2,000 just to make $100 or $200.
So we've got another commenter
Cool,
here
please.
just
Thank you,
asking
Nikki.
about
Nikki,
rentals
you
at the
just
Lake
jump in, please.
Monticello. Okay, well, I'm working on that. So, but one of the things that's being asked about is rentals at Lake Monticello. But one thing I do want to share is that rentals generally aren't listed in our listing service.
Totally.
Sometimes they are,
Correct.
but that is not the main. And I think that's a challenge when people come in from out of town looking for a place to rent. They're like, can you please help me? It's like, yes, I can guide you on how to do this process. But really, it's about connecting with those property managers and with the homeowners who are leasing out these properties.
Yeah.
When we get that phone call, it's call Suzanne.
Exactly. Yes.
It's very simple.
Right.
Thank
Call
you.
Suzanne.
Here's her number.
That's awesome.
Appreciate
Because
it.
that is
But before
not
I
even close
talk
to a
ab-
comprehensive list of what is out there.
And thank you very much for
Yeah.
clarifying that, Nikki. Thank you, my wing person. Yeah. So the reality of it is we have very limited data in Carr. New construction or existing homes, we can dissect it down to the penny.
Yeah.
We just can't do that. But before I talk about Lake Monticello, because that's literally where I was going to go. Our chemistry's working a little bit here.
Just a little
That's
bit.
where I was going to
Awesome.
go next. Deandra, how do you find your tenants?
Oh, Zillow is really where it gets posted. So I post on Zillow and I post on Craigslist for my Charlotte properties, I post on Craigslist mostly to stop scammers for also posting on Craigslist, because if my stuff is up, at least someone else is not stealing my watermarked pictures.
So let's talk about that, because that's a real thing.
Yeah.
Sure.
So
Explain
what
that
happens
means.
is that people will post on Zillow and Trulia with all that information, and what scammers will do on Craigslist in particular, because Craigslist doesn't verify the same way Trulia and Zillow do, is they'll post it and drop the price. So that $2,000 house you saw, they'll say we're selling it for $1,200, but we're out of town. If you could just send us a money order, we'll leave the keys for you. And it sucks because those people who are really struggling to find a place, or are so excited to have a 3-bedroom for their kids, might fall for it because they just want to get in. And that scammer will say, we don't do credit checks, we're cool with anything. And so they'll send it, and then it's gone. And that was never the property to begin with. And I didn't know that was happening until one of my tenants called me. She was moving, I listed it, and she said someone stopped by and was like, is this house for $600? And the tenant said, no, this is the actual landlord, but I learned about that scam. So I mostly post on Trulia and Zillow in Charlottesville. My stuff that's like in Lynchburg or further south, I actually primarily post on Craigslist because that's what that community uses, more so than Zillow and Trulia. So it just depends on what community I'm posting to.
So know your community.
Absolutely.
Without a doubt. So I'm going to add to that a little bit. My wife and I just did a listing over, it was on Wednesday at Lake Monticello. I'll leave the particular details out of it. I got a phone call because somehow or another it got on Craigslist as a rental. Mm-hmm. This is a for sale property. Got on Craigslist as a rental. Somehow or another, my name's in that, and I got a phone call saying, hey, this is rented for $800 or whatever it was. I don't understand. I mean, maybe you understand how it went, but I have no idea how it went from that to that. So you got to be very careful. Zillow is good, but it's knowing your neighborhood and what product is out there for folks to do it. But you mentioned Suzanne going out, and we had a feed from Lake Monticello. Again, this is in cars, so it's very limited. Cars only showing 8 homes for rent in Lake Monticello. Put that in perspective.
Yeah.
At Lake Monticello, there's only 22, 23 homes for sale. So it's proportionally not that far off on that end of it. Median, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, 1,400 square feet, $1,500.
Wow.
The top end listing is 2,000, which is 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, roughly 2,200 square feet, something along those lines. So, there's just not a lot out there, folks. But, I just really wanted to kind of focus today on shining these wonderful ladies and all this work they're going to do. But, Nikki, I've been doing all the talking, so
I've got a little bit to share.
I need you to share
I've got
some stuff
something.
with me.
I've got it for you.
You got
so
something.
I've got a question, but
Smith,
first I
shut
want
up.
to hit
Drink
on
your
something
coffee.
you just said.
Got it.
Oh my gosh, more coffee would be great. We got to work on that, Keith.
I'm drinking coffee.
I think mine is gone. My cup's just there to look pretty. Anyway, so now I got
Liza,
to try
we
my
need coffee.
coffee. I know. So one of the things I wanted to touch on is that, yes, it's hard to find rentals. So what that says to me is now's the time for me to buy one because renters are looking for a place to rent.
I see.
And I have a question
Yes.
for the group.
Sure.
Do you want to say something to that, or am I
No,
good to
no, go.
All right. This is from Kevin. What advice would you give a recent college graduate living in Charlottesville making $50,000 a year?
You want to tackle that, Deandra?
I a long time ago was a recent college graduate making $28,000 a year, and I would ask that graduate to, if they're considering buying here, I would really ask that graduate if this is somewhere they want to be, if they see themselves here long term. I think if they don't, then I would maybe hesitate a little to push you to buy. Because like I said, single family homes, I do not believe personally make the best rentals just because they're expensive. I can give a little example. On the hottest day of the year, my AC went out at my single family home, and I was hoping it was just like the fan, and they came and they were like, hey, it's dead. It cannot be fixed. And so you need a brand new unit, which was $8,000. And if this was a rental, now we fixed it, or we got a new unit, but if this was a rental, then you would have to fix it. Where there are duplexes or small apartment buildings elsewhere that might be a similar price point, but a lot cheaper to maintain. So
Well, so Deandra, can you share your thoughts on house hacking with us?
Yeah, and that was going to be the point. They're going to stay a little longer, or we're willing to maybe house hack. So house hacking, for those who don't know, is when you, the single family route is when you buy a single family home, you live in one bedroom and you rent out the other bedrooms, right? So your mortgage, whatever, and you make money from having roommates. The multifamily route is if you buy a duplex, a triplex, or a quad, right? You live in one of the units and you rent out the others. And the reason I stop at quad is because that is the biggest you can get with a primary residence loan, so as little down as 3.5%. And you rent out the other units to help cover the mortgage. So it's a way to live very cheaply. Also, I believe, offer affordable housing options because your mortgage is not very high, but live for free. And then when you move out, you can then rent out the space. If that is by bedroom to undergrads if you want, if that is by unit. Some people, when I had my duplex, I lived on one side and had roommates. I was like, max it out, get as much money as possible. But the only reason I brought up hesitation again is because Charlottesville's market is hot right now. So if we buy that duplex for $450, it might be a little much in today's world.
Well, we're only making a certain amount of money,
That's right.
So we talk about this on the show all the time. Drive to qualify. We've pegged the term "fly to qualify" because we
Yes.
now have
Oh
people
my
coming from
goodness.
Harrisonburg
Wow.
to work in Charlottesville because that's where they can afford it. My best advice, if this gentleman was to sit down with me to say, "Hey, look, this is what I make. This is where I'm at," I probably would encourage, just like Deandra was saying, I would encourage you to look in some of the outside areas, depending on what's going on in his life and his fiscal situation. Because look, at today's rate, every $100,000 taxes, insurance, principal, and interest on the purchase side is under $500. So if you can find something at 200, then that's 1,000. If you can find something at 250, and when you start going these outer areas, that's around $1,500 plus or minus. And I'm including in my round numbers HOA fees and so forth and so on. Then you bring in Keith to rent one of your bedrooms from you. And then all of a sudden that number drops down.
Yep.
And then you start building. And then the trick is, because I know exactly what you did, is you started paying your principal off in an advanced rate. And then you said, okay, I've got equity built up. You took that equity and bought a second unit. Literally, this is what we're doing with our seller finance project, that after about a year, we're going to build up some equity and we're going to buy another one. And we're just going to buy another one and we're going to buy another one. And it all started with this seller financing, very minimal amount of money out of our pocket, because we fed or solved a need for a client that fit our need, and that marriage just happened and we moved forward. So my advice to that is get in front of a trusted advisor, and that
Absolutely.
trusted advisor will move you along. So what do you think, Nikki? Did I cover that wrong?
I think we covered it really, really well. And I've got another question. Daniel's just got some really great questions today. So what are your
So
guys' thoughts on renting furnished?
Oh.
I love it.
Really?
So I rent to nurses pretty frequently, especially with my properties close to UVA. We have a lot of traveling nurses who come in for 2 to 6 weeks. So to be furnished, to have the internet, to have everything set up, and they can just walk in and drop their stuff. I can get a higher rent, again, offering a need for like my one bedrooms, like my really tiny things. So I'm a big fan of it. I love it. That's where I'm heading after this.
And I can say we're just starting to delve into that right now. We're going to do short-term, fully furnished, internet, all utilities and everything.
How short term
paid
are we
for.
talking?
Yeah, thank you.
3 months is what we're
Okay,
thinking minimally.
nice.
But we're going
You
to
mentioned
rent a
nurses.
4-bedroom that way.
Yeah.
So
We've
why
got the
nurses?
JAG school here
Why nurses?
too.
Oh, just because there's this big need. UVA hires a lot of traveling nurses, especially with COVID, when that was starting to ramp up and we needed the help. So I had a lot of people who are maybe traveling in from Richmond who don't want to commute back and forth. So they'll rent for the week, maybe not even stay the weekends, but they rent just so they don't have to drive. They can walk, they have a parking spot. So for them, it's a great space to be. So I'm all for it.
So is that something I should consider with my rental property?
We could talk about it.
No, that's what we're going to do now. That's what we're trying to do here.
Well, we can look at the figures and see, and
so
see we
tell me
can charge
so
more.
we're having this conversation.
Right.
Tell me the benefit of that. Tell me why I should consider, because we can do that in our homeowners association that we're going to be part of.
Nice.
Tell me why I should consider. What's the benefit of considering this on a 3-month, and then what's the downside?
So it's more money. per month. So
Okay.
you, as the investor, receives more
Got it.
for your
But I got to
property.
now furnish it, so there's in numbers, there's cash out of pocket for
That's-
that, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Possibility of vacancy more frequently since
Got
you
it.
don't have a year lease.
Got it.
And then there are cleaning fees, and that would be more frequent.
What do you think,
in
Deanna?
that
Should I
time.
do it that way?
Well, I like it because I also, so I work with the travel agencies. So I'm not necessarily working with the nurses themselves, but the companies who do these travel agencies, they're paying for it. So it's like, there's a cleaner, so I'll just use that money to pay for a cleaner, and you built it in, and you know how long it's a little more work, I guess, in the sense of like finding it, but if you work with the same agency, you know when their end date is. They pay up front for the 3 months, and so I have 3 months to now find another person. But the difference between rent for me would be, maybe I could get 800 for this. Oh, I guess based on these numbers higher, but I could, openly would be maybe
You
like.
should hire.
That's right. It would be maybe 850 for the 1 bedroom, but I could probably get 2,000 or 2,200 for it furnished without like batting an eye. So that huge jump is definitely worth me doing a little extra work on my end to keep
Sure.
it rented.
So I'm going to pivot a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
In your mind, when is the jump from what you're doing, managing it, to hiring somebody like Susan?
It's coming. Originally, it was because I just didn't have very much money. And so,
There you go.
Thank you.
Nicely done.
I was house hacking, as Nikki brought up earlier, and I was making $28,000, and every dollar I could keep was worth it. So even paying that extra $200 a month was like, that's my student loan payment. So I would rather keep it and try to figure this out on my own instead of moving. But now I have 30 units, and like I said, I'm a little tired, and I'm flipping properties. I
And
teach,
you're driving from
and I'm
different
driving 2 hours.
locations.
Yeah, it's. We're at the point where it's finally like, okay, I might have done what I need to do and can pass on the portfolio to somebody else.
So from our perspective, the reason we would never do what you were doing that time, we would never, but we're not in a point in our lives that we could do that because we have companies. I sit for 3 times a week with Jerry here in this spot. So immediately I would have never done this without having somebody like Suzanne that I know will take care of it, will handle it. If there's a problem, she's going to handle it. All I'll get a phone call is send me a check.
That's right.
right.
And some people just can't. So I also want to say, it is okay to say this is not something I want. I have 2 kinds of people who often I say, like, don't do this. Number one is the like too soft-hearted, right? Who don't keep up rules, who don't have the ability to hold down a hard line of quiet hours, of rental due dates, of application requirements.
It's all about systems.
That's right. And the other one is who are insulted too easily, right? So if someone doesn't pay, if someone is maybe a little angry on the phone and your immediate reaction is rage, then maybe we should hire someone else to be the in-between person because you're going to lose your stuff if you're too crazy as
Yes.
Well, you're really good at that. You're really good at navigating and making people feel comfortable. Even
wanna
though we're
keep-
fellow New Yorkers, I just felt very
I want to keep up with the conversation
Yeah, sure.
going. And so every time I said Daniel, it has been a comment from Daniel Pettit. Am I saying that correct?
Dan Pettit.
Dan Pettit.
Dan
So
Pettit.
I had
Mustang
not said
Dan.
the last name because I didn't want to butcher
No, yeah,
it.
it's Mustang
Names
Dan
are
Dan.
important,
Hey,
you know.
Dan, how you doing, sir?
So
Thank you for doing
he's
it.
also given a.
I will tell you
Yeah?
when this show is over,
Yeah?
Dan will call me
Nice.
and critique everything I've done wrong.
Go after it,
Sitting
Dan.
in
I
this
mean,
seat.
be nice
Don't
enough.
critique
but
Sitting in this
go
seat.
get him.
He will do that. I love him dearly, but that's what's going to happen.
Well, so he also added, he mentioned if HOAs allow it, and I do believe that was as part of
Yeah,
that
we-
whole
we-
short-term
correct.
rental, because with STRs, that's different, right? And then there was also, let's see, I'm not finding it. Oh, he said, as a realtor who has rentals, I use property managers. I do not want to handle this area myself.
Yeah.
And I think there's a group of people, there's a small group who are never ever going to want to let go of managing it, right?
Yeah.
They just like doing it. That will be their life thing. And there's a larger group of people who want to start with a property manager. They don't want to do the in-between. But a lot of people do fall in that in-between. They want to start on their own, and they're eventually going to build to a point where they have so many properties in their portfolio, it only makes sense.
Well, that's the reason I asked Deandra that. There's just a diminishing returns in time and
Mm-hmm.
energy, and you can get really super deals, by the way.
Yeah.
and
Most
just saying. But it becomes a diminishing returns of where your time would be better suited for finding opportunities, right? And doing these awesome seller financing deals or structuring a multifamily and then letting somebody else manage the day-to-day operations. Every business has this magic point that it was would a change on that. I got to give another shout out to Jerry.
Yes.
And I've got to be a little open-hearted and honest about this. We've been doing this 2.5 years. When I first came up with this idea to do this, I thought I was all that. Yeah, it'll be 1 or 2 shows and do this. I will tell you, after sitting in the seat for about 45 minutes, I do not want to sit in the seat.
You're doing great.
I want to be over there.
You got it.
Totally, great job.
So we joke around with this Batman and Robin thing. I think I got to switch it around. I think he's Batman and I'm Robin. Sitting over
What I
there.
hear you saying is Jerry's not allowed to not come back from out of town.
No. I am conflicted, to be honest with you. I love him dearly. I love him like a brother. I really do. And our chemistry as such is kind of weird, But I want him to take time. So I just want to be thankful to you 3 ladies and the poor people that are suffering through this on the other end of it. This is a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
This is a really hard thing
You're
to
doing
do.
a great job.
And I just thought, yeah, I can do this.
That's right.
Right? Yeah, I'm a Marine. I can do this, right? I'm from Brooklyn. I can do this. I built 600 houses. I can do this. I can't. This is hard work. This is hard work. So, Nikki, how do you, I'd like to get you engaged in the conversation a little bit. I've been babbling for 45 minutes. So how are you feeling this going? Where do you want to take this conversation?
Oh God. Well, I just feel like owning rental properties is always a good opportunity. I'm huge into real estate being such a good deal. Mm-hmm. I feel like my life has proven that. I went from being below poverty to finally hitting my first year in real estate where I was like, oh, look at that number.
So you've only been at this for how long?
Oh gosh. December will be 5 years.
So 5 years.
5 years. And I
So
did
we went
so
from
like
5 years from being...
nothing, like below. Like I was working on repairing my credit and trying to get to where I could start
So
saving.
who helped you through that?
Who helped? Oh.
Was it a real estate
Google's
agent
my
that
friend.
helped you through?
Well, once I was part of a brokerage, I had all sorts of help and
There
support,
you go.
right? But before that point, I was kind of out there on my own, But being in real estate, you're in business for yourself, but you're not in it by yourself. And that's really cool.
So we went through that.
You went
Come
through
on,
all
go
that. Oh my gosh. Well, all the way up until this year. This year I bought my first investment property. And
So-
I say my first because there will be more.
So within 4 years,
Yeah, 4 years.
because we're in our 5th year now, within 4 years you went from below the poverty.
Yep, to
opened up your own
having
business.
a solid business, to having an investment property, to now being team leader and getting to help other people do
So
that.
what is a
which
team? What
so
exactly is
cool.
a team leader? Yona asked me that the other day.
What exactly is a team leader? So I help agents run business as well.
So
like
we-
my goal is for them to succeed. So like I would love for every realtor that's local to think about investing. Why not? This is what you do. Invest where you know.
And it's I'm glad that you said that, Nikki, and I'm going to rally it back to your 2 show. I've been doing this since 1987.
Mm-hmm.
I do this in my sleep.
Yeah.
Why the heck am I not buying investment property?
Exactly.
And then I had the old seller financing thing ringing in my ear, and it just walked in. So, the true answer is, and that's kind of, I want to wrap this around.
Mm-hmm.
Less poverty right out of university.
Mm-hmm.
Lost everything we had.
Yes.
I mean,
And here we are.
And here we are, having a conversation, having Suzanne taking care of all our rental properties.
That's right.
That's
All right,
pretty
apparently
awesome,
I'm next
guys.
on this list.
I mean, just think about that. I don't want to get a little mushy on the show.
Yeah. No, it's amazing.
But just think about it. Everybody sitting at this table went from 0 to wherever we are in our lives.
Yeah, I can say I graduated. I had at the max like $40,000 or $45,000 of student loan debt because I went back to get my teacher license. It took a long time to even get that $28,000 a year job, and I retired last year from teaching. So
Nobody walked in and gave you
Awesome.
a large check and said, "Go do your thing."
No, it took me 2 years to save my $4,000 down payment on my house and never looked back.
How'd you do that?
I finally got my salary job, making $28K, but that was Monday through Friday, and I was working as a lifeguard prior, and just kept lifeguarding on Saturday. So I taught swim lessons on Saturday, I lifeguarded on Sunday, so I kept that part-time job, but it sucked. So let me also add, like, it took a lot to dig out, but I tell everyone that growth is so exponential. Like, if you could just get to that next step, it always was easier. That first 4,000 was the hardest for sure in order for me to save. But once I did it, I bought my first property in 2015 and was able to fully walk away from teaching by 2020. And probably could have done it sooner if I would have just, like, believed that
Exactly.
was okay for me to
Yes.
do.
That's exactly right.
But yeah, so now I run multiple businesses, and even now, I don't touch the real estate money. So, like, that money is its own money and its own account. I have other businesses supplying my income, but it's
So let's
really
talk
like
about that.
once
How
we
many
get started.
businesses do you have?
I have about 4,
Okay.
which is why one of these needs to get transferred over, because I am tired. But it was, affordable housing is important to me. And part of the reason I started other businesses was to make sure that I had this space in the event of tenant mishaps or building mishaps, that I wasn't looking at my tenant like, hey, can you pay next month early because I have to fix the boiler and I don't have it to do. I mean, also, again, makes it, we talk about systems, it makes it easier for me to do my job if I'm not tied to every cent coming in. But we built it. And it takes a lot maybe to get started, but I have not seen a space where it's not worth it.
So I would encourage everybody who's listening or watching, either now in this evergreen format, to go on and Google, YouTube, or get on to my homepage, which is Yes Realty Partners, or Yes Realty team on that end of it, or I Love Charlottesville. Look at last Friday's show that we did with the Erpies. And we talked about the financial services, and we had a long conversation, guided by Jerry, thank God, about the latte factor. Do you know what the latte factor is?
I do not.
Interesting.
So the latte factor is, Google it, it's a book that was written, and the principle behind it is if you buy one less latte a day, $5 a day, and if you do, it's called compound interest, if you do that, you can raise a tremendous amount of money. So it's about changing one's thinking and one's lifestyle and making that slow sacrifice. I can't do this. Well, you know what? If you take one latte less, and I can't quote the numbers, the Erpies did a great job on that end of it. So I'd encourage everybody to watch the show from last Friday. But the reality of it is you can have one less latte. This is not a latte, it's a regular coffee, by the way. One less latte, 2 less lattes. And what that does is you put this $5 away, it generates money over time. 2 years, one less latte, you end up with $4,000. Because that's ultimately what you did. You cut something out of your life.
Yes, and I do think there are people who have issues with spending. So anytime I work with my clients, like, budgeting is number one. We need to talk about, like, what you're spending your money on, because more money is not going to fix a broken system.
So let me stop you for a second. So what I'm hearing, I'm not a landlord. All I'm not care about is me getting paid on time. I care about you.
Yeah.
And I'm you, the tenant, and I'm going to help you get through your budgeting.
I don't help my tenants. That would be a good idea.
Okay.
I do not help my tenants. It's the people like
Good,
who I'm
'cause that's
helping.
where my brain was
Oh,
going.
yeah, no, it's the people I'm helping manage who are trying to get into real estate.
Yes.
Who are
Got
coming
it.
to me saying, I want to make an extra 500 because I don't have enough
Got
saved
it.
up. And I
Got
need to
it.
say, first, we need to control what we have. There is a system of your own, because more money is not going to make this better. And if you're spending all you have already, this is going to make it really difficult to effectively landlord, because you're going to be too reliant on the money coming in. So we need to get your money under control. But there might not be a lot of space. And that's when we have to then change the system. And if that is what we're budgeting, if that is where we're living, if that is maybe a different job, it might be the system you have is just not working. And for some people, it is like, hey, I just need you to stop shopping as much, right? Because we need to be in control first before we go to control other people's housing. But sometimes it is like, I had to work a second job, and I don't want to go over that. For a long time, I worked 2 jobs and I didn't have weekends, and that is not glamorous, but I was only qualified for so much at that point to work. And that was the way I saw out. But I could have also gone home. That could have been something too. I could have gone and lived with my parents and maybe saved money that way.
And if you're using that as a tool to save up to do what's next, then that can be crazy helpful.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So I was trying to be smart and try to do this latte calculator on my phone, but I can't do that and listen at the same time. But I wanted to see what the math would turn out to be, and I suspect it's close to if you do one latte less a day for 7 days straight over 2 years, you've got your $4,000.
And that goes to like, because everyone is buying a latte every day, and so.
Yeah.
For like I said, the people who are overspending, we do need to just get into control of our budget. There are little things we can give up, but I do understand that there are people who don't feel like they're overspending.
I don't think we were people who could have given up a latte once a week and it would have helped, because I wasn't buying a latte, period. Certainly
Sure.
not one daily.
Sure.
And I felt that like my weekly Sunday Bodos, like if I have to give up it's a $3 bagel, please, can I have something? Can I have something? Please, I can't eat spaghetti again.
And I get it, right?
Yeah.
You know, I'll tell the story. You said you were a lifeguard. Our youngest daughter is a former Division I swimmer.
Wow.
She's an athlete, done lifeguarding, done all that stuff, and and maybe I'm going to overshare here. And Mrs. Smith is probably going to yell at me after this on this end of it. But I tell the story all the time. So. When we have an 8-year difference between our oldest daughter and our youngest daughter. Our oldest daughter's 35, our youngest daughter's 27. And she just turned 27 the other day. Happy birthday, sweetheart. And so when our oldest daughter graduated high school, she got a two-year-old brand new car. No, it was only 2 years old. When our youngest daughter graduated, we were at zero. We had a client that couldn't pay us. There was a death in the family on that end of it, and we got a 1992 green Ford Escort station wagon, and it was, honey, here you go. Mm-hmm. And, that was the reality to her. And she drove, and I made a promise to her that if you graduate high school, by the way, it was our first Smith to ever graduate high school, was my youngest daughter, ever. I'll buy you a new car. And I forgot all about it. She sure as hell did.
There's no way.
Walked out of JMU, and she literally grabbed my hand and said, we're going to the car dealer. And we went and got a car deal. But the point I'm trying to make is that these were the sacrifices everybody needed to make. This was the sacrifice that my daughter needed to make, because she didn't, at the age of 18, what the hell does she know, right?
Yeah.
Hold it. How come I didn't get a BMW? Well, this is life, and this is how this goes. But we built it up, and she ended up getting it. But it took us 4 years and 5 years to get to that point so that I can give her the graduating gift that I wanted to do it. We sacrificed lattes.
Yeah.
We drove one car instead of 2 cars because we couldn't afford 2 cars on that.
Well, see, and that's a
end
big
of
deal. So to me, that's a different category than the latte. Not that both aren't sacrificing, but also that cost of maintaining a second vehicle is a lot.
Yeah.
So, Deandra, when Jerry's back in this seat, I want to bring you back on because I'm super passionate about affordable housing. I chair Land Trust, which is affordable housing. I chair the Regional Housing Partnership. I'm on all these different commissions that I've been working literally for 10 years to try to do this. We're making some wins.
Yeah.
Which I'm happy to say, knock on fake IKEA or fake wood, whatever this is on that end of it. But I want to bring you back and have that conversation and laser focus around it, because what I'll probably do is bring in my executive director from the Land Trust into that.
Nice. That'll be
So
great.
we're past 11:15.
I got one last question here, and I don't know that we have an answer to it, but the question is, what is the average property manager's fee to rent property? Is there...
It's about 8%, depending on
Okay.
how many.
You're blowing my mind. I definitely thought it was higher than that. So that's
All
awesome.
right.
That's what we charge.
I love it. I love it.
But is that the norm?
No.
There we go.
So you're
We're
right in the
8%.
office talking.
I'd say most of the people I've interviewed have been between 10 and 12.
Yeah, that's
and
exactly
then
right.
there's a turnover fee. So there's also like if
So in
in
case you didn't get
I know
that.
I'm telling you, man, because A lot of people I see are 10 to 12%, and then every year there's either a lease renewal fee, so if they're gonna stay, there's a fee that way, or there's a turnover fee, which can be half the month's rent to the full month's rent.
And we do charge those.
Okay, I was gonna say, gee,
Yes.
man, oh man, there's not even.
But you're
Yeah.
starting out
Turnover.
anywhere between 2 and 4% under. right?
Yes, absolutely. Which, do you have a lease renewal fee if they don't
Yes.
leave? Yeah, but even, again.
But it's small.
Keeping people in the house is also great.
And look at that gorgeous smile.
I know. Just the joy and the
Oh,
happiness.
okay, so we're getting more questions in.
Yeah, sure,
So Kevin's
please.
asking, given the wedding business here, the wineries and breweries, and the fact Seaville is a destination now, why rent versus Airbnb? So long-term rentals versus short-term rentals.
Well, Airbnb is different. So Airbnb is
Yeah.
not the short-term rental we were talking about earlier. To
Yes,
get
that
out
is
of
true.
the super short-term, I guess, you got to be 30 days or longer in the city, or 31 days, I guess. So longer
Well,
than 30
and
days.
then as Dan was mentioning, it also
on what's
depends on
allowed.
the HOA.
Yeah.
And which was the homeowners association, whatever covenants you're going to. So for instance, in Lake Monticello, you cannot rent anything less than 6 months. Right? And so there you go. You're doing 6-month rentals. You can't do daily, even though it's a golf course community, can water ski,
Yeah.
blah, 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 blah.
Bring a
You
boat.
cannot do you're not supposed to.
Yeah.
If it happens or not, it's a different story. Or not end of it.
But I do have a friend who Airbnbs, but she Airbnbs her own personal home, and she does work with wedding planners. So she'll disappear for the weekend. They get the beautiful house they can stay in on weekend.
What's
but
the
it's
gentleman's name?
not always
That
super
was
sustainable
Kevin, I
because of
think it
all
was
the rules
Higgins?
in Charlottesville in
Let me double
place for
check that. I'm
Airbnbs.
working multiple
So a little
sites
advice
here.
for those out there listening or watching this, if you want to do Airbnb, please, 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 please reach out to the city, Albemarle County, whichever jurisdiction you want to do on that. They have rules,
Yeah,
folks.
they do.
And you're going to have to get a business license, and you're going to pay a room tax. There's all kinds of criteria. Albemarle County in particular, it has to be owner occupied.
Yep.
Right? So that's an important thing. You can't just go out and buy an investment property and turn it into an Airbnb. You have to,
You need to know those regs.
You need to
You
know
want
those
follow
regs, yeah,
them.
so-
And truly, if you're going to do that, if you're truly investing, you're going to want to run it as a business anyway, period.
well, it's just important to know that those
Yes.
are the rules and those regulations. You need to reach out to your trusted advisor to take a look at
But
it.
it is a great idea. And I will say, I love that you're thinking of, how else can I use these spaces? If Jerry was here when I was here a few times before, talking about, well, there's commercial spaces. Maybe I can use this for a commercial thing. Maybe I can use this, like we talked about, for nursing. Maybe I can use it for undergrads by room or the whole house for grad students. So I love that you're thinking of other ways to make more money. But that is one of the ways that we are all cautioning you against, because it is a little tricky. Specifically, we bring it back to affordable housing to keep housing on the market. Right? Because if all of us could just do short-term rentals, we would. Because it's more profitable. It is. So it keeps housing in Charlottesville, keeps residents in their homes, because they're not allowing investors to just rent to weddings every weekend. So don't also hate the rules, because they have some good benefits as well.
Definitely.
Anything you want to add to the conversation,
No,
Suzanne?
just thank you so much for having us on here, and it's been great meeting everyone, and appreciate your support.
So how can folks get a hold of you? How other than me handing the card?
That's right. Yeah, we have.
How can Deandra get a hold of you? Talk a little bit more about what you do.
Sure.
What's your website? What's your phone number?
Yep. Our website is Your Ally PM, because we're your friends. So YOURALLYPM is the website. It has all the information there for owners. So it has all of our fee schedules. We offer a very simple possibility. If you're just looking for tenants, we will find a tenant for you, and then you manage it from there. So a lot of folks call us and say, hey, I don't feel like doing the research. You find a tenant, we get the first month's
Well, that's
rent.
what we're doing with you. So thank you.
We get the first month's rent, and then they take on the responsibility from there. Most folks use our 8% mode, where we find the tenant and it's full service. We take care of the place. And then we also offer a premium service where we pay all of those fees associated with HOAs. We pay mortgages, and we pay utilities if some are included in the rent, and that's a higher percentage. That's our 10%. But most folks use the 8% mode. But all those things are described on our website. It's a great website, and we hope to hear from you.
So I'm going to give a little bit more shout out to you because the other thing that you also do, and I'm a recovering developer and builder, right? Built 600 houses in my career. I know a little bit about that world. I couldn't find a painter. And I said, Suzanne, I need a painter. Not only did you find a painter, you found a painter for $2,000 cheaper than the closest person I could find. So not only is she only going to charge you 8%, she's going to find you folks to do work that's awesome.
And he's
I'm
starting
telling-
tomorrow.
am I telling?
And
By
he's
the way-
starting tomorrow.
By the way, remember that 3%, 3%. Hold it, no, 6%.
Yeah.
You screwed up, 6%. But I wanted to give that shout out to you because, again, just like the conversation, I thought I was all that. I can handle this. I cannot handle this. Jerry is a rock star. I can't do this. I thought I was all that. What are you talking about? I built 600 houses. I'll find my painter. And I was like, oh man, I don't have time for this. Find myself a painter. And you did it, and you saved me $2,000. So thank you. Thank you very much. I'm not paying any more money, but thank you very much. There you go. So,
I just want to add something, just a
Sure.
little more information. I know we're wrapping up just a little bit, but Dan mentioned if a landlord furnishes a home or a townhome, make sure in the lease that the tenant has to have the house cleaned by a service company prior to moving out. This is a tenant fee. So he's given some advice from his experience and what he knows, which was really great. And then Kevin popped in just to say, great show, I learned a lot. I think investment is always a good topic of
well,
conversation.
thank you, Kevin. Thank you very much, Kevin. The host is struggling through this, I must admit. But Suzanne, I'm going to go back to you one more time to talk a little bit about this. So I reached out, you've looked at it, you've got apparently. We just signed the paperwork, so you've got a tenant set up for. You're painting my house. You're doing everything with that. What else do you do? What other services other than we just outlined that you can do that you can share with the folks?
Well,
Because
we hope-
folks should reach out to you to help you. Because much like Deandra, I had a 12% number in my head, and I was reluctant to do that. I was reluctant to reach out the phone because I didn't want to have this awkward conversation about, oh man, I can't
Especially
afford
12% for not full service.
Yeah.
So I also want to add that too, of like,
Oh,
it was
my.
the 12% for them to get the phone call to call me. It's like, well then what are you here for? If you're just going to call me to ask me to do all the things, like you can't fix these things for me, then you're just collecting rent, which we do online. So
right.
that. So we're hopefully
So-
with this show you'll get a couple of more. I know you got one
I'd
more
love
coming.
it.
I know you got one more coming.
I'd love it.
And then
Truly.
Deandra and I are going to get together so we can get some more deals put together and just keep on
Sounds
handing
fantastic.
them over that way.
We
So,
love it.
tell-
Yeah, so you did ask me what else we provide.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
our website is really 24/7. The owner has access to the lease once it's signed. They also know financially exactly what's happening with their property, so they can look at the accounting. They know what they're going to receive. We have a budget schedule where we work from the 10th to the 9th of each month, and then on the 10th, the owners receive a statement and receive their rent, ACH, their owner draw.
So
and
would you go
we-
out to like Lake Monticello, Buckingham?
We have properties
Sure,
out there.
Sure.
We do. We
So-
stretch all the way to Richmond too.
So on the Monday Market Monitor.
All right, got it. Triple M.
Triple M. Well, Nikki will be there. I will be here. Jerry hopefully will be here.
Jerry will
please
be here.
Short vacation.
Come on, Jerry.
No, I'm so happy for him that he's taking time off. I truly mean that. I mean that with all my heart and soul.
Absolutely.
On that end of it. And I'll just get better at this. Never
Yes,
as
you
good as
will.
him, though. But we're going to actually talk about Buckingham. We're going to
Yeah.
talk about some of the outlying counties. Please chime in if you can, Deandra. But what we're going to talk about is what the trends are going out in that way as far as price point. Because ultimately, as they talked on Monday, some folks chimed in on Monday and Tuesday on the Tuesday show, the definition of affordable, we're talking affordable, means different things to different
yeah,
people,
for sure.
right? Some folks think of affordable is at one number and affordable is at another number. So what we're going to try to
We're
do is
having different
tackle.
conversations. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
And that also affordable and low income are not interchangeable. I think that is something
Yes.
like, especially in Charlottesville, in some places those might be interchangeable words, but they are not here.
They
Those
are.
are two very
No.
different definitions based on what the city says. So, and
Well-
I brought up, so we're talking about Buckingham, another rural county. I invested in Lynchburg and like towards Danville. And my one, again, the one bedrooms, we have 800 to 1250. My one bedrooms in some of my more rural county spaces are like 400. So, again, what they think is affordable is
Location.
completely different from what is affordable in the city of Charlotte.
But to push back a little bit, do you have an idea where those folks are working?
So a lot of my stuff down there is very rural. So they're all traveling into Lynchburg or traveling into Danville for like their jobs.
Which is how long of a drive?
About 30 minutes.
Okay, that's not.
Yeah, so it's equivalent to the Waynesboro, maybe Stanton. The
Sharpsville.
people travel from Stanton, Dillwyn, Buckingham, but
Well, I do it every day. Lake Monticello to here is about 20 minutes.
wow, yeah.
About
So
20.
and I'm in Scottsville, so it's about 35 for me to get into the city.
Pretty
but
drive, though, isn't it?
It is when there's not trees down.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. But yeah, so I'm glad you guys
Yeah,
are talking about those outer
absolutely.
counties because they also have a lot of like duplexes and like the properties I bought were like converted motels that were abandoned and like converted into other things. So please do look in those outer counties.
So I also want to, I missed a little bit of a feed at some point.
Uh-oh.
So Domingo Murray said, hello, good morning.
Thank you.
Nicholas said, you rocked at Keith Batman forever. Johnny popped in and was like,
Well,
you're doing a good job. You want me to, I'm going to keep going.
So I have to
Everybody's
tell you, I
like,
met Nicholas for the first time yesterday. I kind of got a man crush on him.
Oh,
He's pretty
okay.
awesome. He's pretty an awesome dude.
well, you know, he
Awesome
proved
dude.
his awesomeness because he kept going. So Jamie Turner says, crushing a key.
Oh, thank you.
Nicholas came back and says, thanks for the shout out.
I
And
see a
then
little-
gave us a link,
see a
which
little
was really
blush.
helpful.
Yeah.
What's that?
See a little blush
I know,
coming out.
yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm very
Go
shy.
Keith. Go Keith. Oh, yeah.
Shy. Very shy. I
So,
told
yeah.
my wife this morning, this is a big thing for me. Really? What we do here, right? Judah, Liza, Jerry, everybody at this table, we take what we do pretty seriously.
Yeah.
Everybody, I know everybody at this table done a ton of work and prepared here to get information out.
And Judah's rocking it from behind the scenes
Oh, yeah,
back
yeah,
there.
yeah. It's kind of weird because when I'm sitting there, I can actually see Judah.
Yes.
Here, all I see is a monitor, and then hands. Then Judah's straightened hands. All I see is a monitor, and below the monitor, there's all these fingers going
around you, all
like
the
this. So,
things.
Judah, thank you for what you do. Thank you for putting up with this and getting all these camera angles moving every way. Nikki, thank you. Thank you.
Always thank you
Thank
for
you.
having me. I love it.
You ladies rock.
Thank you.
Any
Thank you
last
for
words
having
before
us.
we go? Because we're like seriously over.
Absolutely. If you would like to follow me more, I am on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Deandra McDonald or Simple Real Estate. Either of those two things, I will pop up, and I would love to see you in the social media neighborhood.
Awesome. Thank you for having us on here. And give a shout to Ally Property Management and give us a call. We'll be happy to help you manage.
I'm Keith Smith, Yes Realty Partners, filling in for Robin, Jerry Miller.
Nikki Chambliss filling in for Batman. I get to be Keith today.
That's right, yep.
Keith for, well, maybe not a whole day. I don't think I can handle that, y'all.
We won't make you wear the Batman suit. I'm definitely not getting in the Robin suit. That's for sure. Oh, look at you laughing.
Oh, that just made today the best one ever.
That was. Thank you for putting some levity into the show. For those who don't know, that's the voice of the director, Judah behind that big, massive monitor. So at least we achieved something. We made Judah
That's right.
chuckle, which he usually doesn't do. But thank you. Hey, reach out to Interstate Service Company, American Pest, Charlottesville Settlement, Pearl, Scott with Ross Mortgage, Dairy Market, and Keller Williams Alliance.
KWA.
And if you
Allied
need a rent,
Property
if you need a rental, reach out to Allied. You want to learn some awesome stuff, reach out to Rachel.
Deandra.
Deandra. Sorry.
Rachel.
See?
I know. That's your other
So
personality.
Deandra, I have attention deficit syndrome. I swear to God I do. And I just got a message from Rachel. So that's what I saw. It went here, blah, 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 came out that way. It's not Rachel, right?
It is.
Got it. Thanks, guys. Thank you very much. We're going to wrap up.
Awesome.
Please come back, Jerry. See you later,
Thank
guys.
you.